I was motivated to join in the first place. I suppose I was fascinated by how we could take previously like intangible images that were just stuck in our brain. So like images like memories and locations, and then to put them on the cards would be to bring them into the physical dimension. And that was interesting because you would have thoughts that were previously only temporalized, if that's the right word to use, in a certain place and time. And then you can, by putting them on a physical card, for instance, and connecting them with other cards, you can sort of bring them to the present day reality and see how they relate to other images that come from other times. So that was my personal motivation for it. It was just fun to see how people could connect things and observe the patterns that will emerge. Yeah.
Okay, so it's important for students before they enter something big like secondary school to know, I suppose, the historical lineage of what has made the school the way it is. So it's important for them to understand the cultural backing of why we do certain things in the school. And for me, doing that Peranakan Heritage Tour was a great part of that. Personally, for myself, doing this tour made me know a lot more about my school's own heritage, and this was important because it reinforced the ideas of why I am this way in the school and why the school is structured in a certain way. So the idea of lineage is also very strong because we have a lot of the Peranakan history is very strong in our school. So we have a lot, like for example, the architecture of our school, the curriculum also is strongly influenced by this Peranakan heritage. And I think that was something that formed my identity. And being a Peranakan myself, this was doubly relevant. Yeah.
Some of the reasons why we do this is that nature conservation is an increasingly important focus within Singapore, because conservation of our natural heritage is being seen as more important, with things like Chek Jawa and the Cross Island Line actually threatening the kinds of biodiversity that is present in Singapore.
I think my personal motivations for being on the committee is really to see how big events and national events are being planned, because I guess as students all we do is plan like camps and maybe forums and things like that, but those are very micro level with a much smaller target audience. So to be able to see what are all the considerations that you have to think about, all the things that you have to put in place just so to organize a nationwide event is really like a lot of things that you can learn from it. And also for me personally, I think it's a very good opportunity for me to be part of something bigger, because I guess SG50 is like a milestone in itself. Yes, Singapore, we are 50 years old, it's time for us to reflect, and I think it's quite apt that, you know, I have been given the chance to be part of this community. So for me, that was quite a good opportunity to learn and to, you know, really reflect on what it means for me to be part of the or like to be a Singaporean, or like in this day and age, what it means for me to call like a country my home and things like that.
I think one of the main ones that seems to be really interesting is just the idea of getting Singaporeans to kind of relive memories that they've had over the past few decades of Singaporeans' independence. And I suppose it's important because to chart the course of our next 50 years, we probably need to have a good understanding of where we are now. So once we have a good understanding of where we are now, we can choose for ourselves like what are things from our past that we like, what are things from the past that we don't like, or also reflect on like our relationships with other people. And because the memories are always things that relate to not just yourself but your surroundings and the people who were with you at that time. So there's always like quite a personal reflection when you get people to think about how their memories can relate to the future. And then it would be interesting to have Singaporeans kind of imagine their future that way by thinking about the past first.
The Peranakan culture is important to Singapore because Singapore is largely a composite nation, I would say, of different cultures and different histories. And knowing one part of it would just supplement the whole in a certain way.
So the Being as Jungles plays a very important role in propagating and spreading environmental awareness to all the people in Singapore, because even though we can only bring a small fraction of the public onto these walks, most of them become more educated about the kinds of iconic natural heritage that we have in Singapore. For example, many Singaporeans do not know that the crimson sunbird is actually the national bird of Singapore and has a very distinctive call and also looks really cute. So I think that natural heritage is really important to Singapore's future, because it is often rooted in part of Singapore's past history, where much of Singapore used to be a plantation, and since then these have become secondary forests, and because we're so urban, a lot of this natural landscapes have actually been lost. So what we can actually still continue to preserve would be our nature reserves, and when people go there they can find a piece of Singapore that used to be there. If you go along different trails within the Bukit Timah Nature Reserve, you can actually see the foundations of what used to be houses that used to be there. So remnants of kampongs are actually still there, and it's really important to pass on these memories of how Singapore's past natural landscapes are still present even today. And when kids go on these trails, they get to learn not only about the animals but also what used to be there.
I think in the larger picture, what SG50 really is about is, because whenever we have to do such a nationwide event, there's a need to kind of reflect on what was our national narrative. So that in itself took quite a long discussion, because what are the things to be included as part of the national narrative, what are the things that we want people to take away from it, and what are the things that we want people to see as our past, present and future. So all this actually relates back to what we consider as our heritage, our history, but at the same time it forces us to think about, with all our history and our things that happened and all our achievements, we must also kind of reflect on what we did not achieve, what we have yet to achieve, and this kind of sets the groundwork for what we want to achieve in the future. So for example, they might say that we are kind of the papers have been saying, or people think that Singapore is a very economic driven society, and perhaps there's a need to focus more on the people development. So in the next 10 years, how can we better build up society more holistically? So all these things are part of SG50, where we kind of have to reflect and we kind of have to decide what we want in the next 10 years, because this is when we actually get the attention of the whole nation, and hopefully we get the whole nation to contribute what are their aims and aspirations and things like that. So what part of Singapore they still want to see, what part of Singapore they want to change, and really what they want, what they would hope Singapore would achieve if they were to call Singapore their home for the next 50 years.